Hello, and welcome to Back to School Classroom Management Solutions. We can't wait to bring you this training, and welcome to everyone who's here live and also everyone who's watching by way of the video replay. We can't wait to get into this material with you. We're going to get started here in just a couple minutes. So while we wait, feel free to hop on and introduce yourself, share where you're from, and what you teach, and maybe how long you've been teaching. In this training, we are going to learn how to avoid 5 common mistakes that often occur at the start of school. We're going to teach you how to get your students to follow procedures, how to earn your students' respect and keep it all year long, how to reduce chatter, blurting, and other common classroom problems, how to start the year off right, and keep control all year long. And it's about more than just keeping control, right? Keeping control is about creating a classroom environment where your students can thrive and succeed. And we're going to cover so much more. So we are so glad to have all of you here. This is awesome. We've got people from Ohio, Utah, California, Idaho, Pennsylvania, Kentucky. This is fantastic. Welcome to everyone. We are so glad to have you. All right, couple things as we're getting started here. First of all, can everyone hear me? And second of all, is this coming in blurry on your screen? It's looking a little bit blurry on my example here. So I'm hoping it's coming through okay for everybody else. So just hop on and let me know. Okay, good. It looks like the sound's working. So hooray, sound is working. People can hear. How about the screen? Can you guys see okay? Well, man, this is so fast. Not too blurry. Okay, wonderful. It's just my connection then. Fantastic. All right, so once again, if you're just joining us, we're going to get started officially here in just about a minute, but would just love to hear how long you've been teaching, what age and subject you teach, and anything else that you'd like to share. Oh, this is so fantastic. We just hit over 1,000 people on the training. I'm so glad to have all of you here. That's wonderful. And I know you can see the chat box is going a mile a minute, but don't let that stop you. We'd love to hear from you. This is so cool to see. We've got such a variety all across grade levels, veterans, newbies from all over the country. This is just fantastic. Can't wait to get started. All right. Well, we are just about to get started. It's 8:30 by my clock, and so we'll go ahead and get started right now. Before we do, if you don't mind, I'm going to open up in a word of prayer. That'll be very helpful for me with my desire to bring you guys a training that's really helpful. Father, thank you so much just for this opportunity. Thank you that we can connect across the nation and across the world online. It's just such an amazing opportunity. And I just pray that this training will be incredibly helpful for all the teachers that are here. Help them to be able to pick out the strategies that will work for them in their teaching situation and walk away with a solid plan that will help them create a classroom environment where they and their students can thrive and grow together all year long. Please give me the words. I pray that you'll help the technology to cooperate and just make it helpful for each teacher. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, here we go. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like this? In a word, has your classroom ever looked a little bit like this? Maybe not literally, but you know, pretty much. If you have, you're not alone. Mine sure has. Especially my first year teaching, things were really rough. I was so excited to teach, showed up that first day, all the excitement, all the passion, wanted to get into learning, but I made a few key mistakes that first week of school. It all started that first week of school. And one mistake led to another. And by October, things were pretty bad. It was bad enough the principal had to call me in his office and say, can you please muster like every ounce of, of control or authority that you have, and like here's some things that are going on behind your back that I wasn't aware of, and it was just it was a disaster. I remember one class in particular. I taught middle school math, so I had 6 classes, and one in particular was just horrible. It was the first period class, and I just remember standing in front of them, and they were trying to start class, and like half the class is talking, a bunch of them are walking around, the majority don't have their homework. It just felt like no one was listening. It was a disaster. Okay. Definitely a disaster. It's actually, slight side note, I now have one of those students that was in my first class, the most disastrous one, is now in one of our small groups at church. And I want to say to her, I'm sorry, I was new, I didn't know what I was doing. But that's what we're going to try to keep you from doing. And maybe you can relate. Maybe you can relate to that same problem. But the good news is that even though the mistakes start the first week of school, if we make some key mistakes the first week of school, it can really have a detrimental effect. It's also an incredible opportunity. And if we start the year off right in that first week of school, it's amazing the difference it can make. And that's what happened to me personally. I met with mentors, I read books, and I really tried to prepare myself for my second year. And when I started the year off right with some of the strategies I'm about to teach you, it wasn't perfect, but it was night and day better. And we were able to learn and grow and succeed together as a class. And so I'm excited to share some of those strategies with you today. So what will we be discussing? We're going to be discussing 5 common mistakes teachers make. Many of them are the ones I did during that critical first week of school. Of course, we'll also talk about how to avoid them. And then some keys to start the school year off the right way and set yourself up and your students up for great success. Before we get into that, if you don't know who I am, my name is Linda Kardamis, and I did teach middle school math in a Christian school in Ohio, and I am the founder of Teach for the Heart. And I always love to ask this because it's such great variety. How many of you have been part of Teach for the Heart for a while, and how many of you this is your first time ever doing anything with us? I would love to hear that. That's always so interesting to see who's new and who's been around Teach for the Heart for a while. I'm also the creator of Classroom Management 101 online course, as well as Beyond Classroom Management and many others. I'm also the author of Create Your Dream Classroom, Take Heart and Teach, and the Teach Uplifted Devotions. Oh, we have so many first timers. That's awesome. And a lot of people that have been around for a while also. This is fantastic. And some of you that have been around, but it's your first online training. So glad to have all of you. It's wonderful. All right, so this is what we're going to be discussing. You might want to grab your notes. I hope you were able to print out your notes and that you have them ready. If you don't have them ready right now, you can grab them at teachfortheheart.com/notes. But you might just be better served to grab a pen and paper so you're not trying to print something off in the middle of the training. I don't want you to miss the beginning. Okay, here we go. Let's dive right in. Mistake number 1. So mistake number 1 is not realizing the importance of that first week or 2 of school. And honestly, that can be the difference from this, none of our classes actually look like this, but from this nice, everyone's engaged, learning together class, and this one. Right? It really can be. That first week of school is just so important because it sets the tone for the entire year. And I mean, just think about it with me, right? The students come in, most of the time they've never met you, they know nothing about your class, but even if they do, and this is what happened to me my second year, I had some of the same students from 6th grade are now into 7th grade, the 7th graders were now 8th graders. Even if you have the same students, it is a fresh start, right? They're coming in, it's their first day, and they are there wondering, what's this class going to be like? And you can really set the tone however you want. You can reinvent your entire classroom culture. But here's the problem. If you let your students during that first week of school kind of do whatever they want, well, they're going to do whatever they kind of common sense. But the danger that we fall into is we just think, oh, we just want to start off fun and exciting. We want to just we don't want to do, what am I trying to say? Sorry. We don't want to lay down the law. I want to really get to know them in the beginning. But if you start out kind of letting anything go, then everything's gonna go. And that's fine for the first day or two. It might even be fine for the first week or two, but about week 6, 7, 8, it's October and you have a mess on your hands. And when you try to rein things back in, it's very, very difficult. I have been there. Some of you have been there and can relate. And it's not a good thing. So if you go down that road, it's not good, but it can also be this incredible fresh start. That's what I was talking about before. They're there. Everything is new. You can really totally reinvent your classroom culture if you want to. So you can make a complete fresh start, even if it can be night and day different from last year. That's what I love about teaching. You get a fresh start every year. And if you start, however you start off, your students are in what is going on mode, and you can totally lead them wherever you'd like. So it's a very, very exciting opportunity. You can set any expectation you want. Pretty much anything that you say that first day that you say, okay, this is our procedure for this, or this is how we're going to handle that. You can set any expectation you want. I'm not saying it's magically going to happen. We're going to talk in a little bit about how to actually make sure your procedures are followed, but you can say, if this is how you've always wanted to handle cell phones, or how you've always wanted to handle bathroom breaks, or how you've always wanted to handle homework, you can do that. You can set that expectation from day one, and you've got a great chance that your students will go along with it. And like I said, you can make big changes from last year. Even if you have some of the same students, the first week of school provides that fresh start. So all this to say, I haven't given you a lot of specifics yet, but I really want you to understand what an incredible opportunity, but also how careful we need to be with that first week of school. It is probably the most important week of the year because it sets the whole rest of the year up. So don't blow it off. Don't just think, oh, we'll just have fun. We'll get down to business later. Put great value on that first week of school. Okay, we're about to start mistake number 2. Feel free to ask questions anytime throughout this. If I see one that directly relates to what we're saying, sometimes I'll answer them here in the in-between. But we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So if you don't get your questions in the middle, stick around at the end and we'll answer them there. Amy asks a great question. I'll pause to answer before we move on. She says, what if I mess up? If you mess up, there are definitely some things that you can do to get back on track. We talk about that in our classroom management mini course. So do not let this be something of fear. This is not supposed to be a fear like, oh, if I mess up one thing, the whole year is going to go off track. That is not helpful, right? And that's not helpful at all. So don't let yourself be ruled by that fear. But we do want to do what we can. And we're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It doesn't mean that everything is ruined, but we want to do what we can to set ourselves up for success. Okay, let's move on to number 2. Any other questions? You can ask them now or write them down for the end. Okay, mistake number 2 is expecting good procedures to just happen. I think this mistake is probably even more common up in middle school and high school, because I think in elementary teachers typically do a better job realizing that it's not going to happen unless we really work on them. But sometimes us middle school or high school teachers think, oh my goodness, the procedures, they know how to pass in papers. They know how to, grab a hall pass and go to the bathroom. They know all these things. And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Or if they know, they don't necessarily follow through with it unless you work with them with it. So this works all the way up from K all the way up through 12. So a couple different ways this mistake can manifest. One way it can manifest is by not thinking through good procedures. So what I mean by that is maybe you just have never really thought through, how do I want my students to pass in papers? Do I just say pass them in and then it's like a huge hubbub? Or have I really thought through, okay, I want the papers to start over here. They're going to go, each person's going to wait for the stack. When they get here, they're going to be passed to the person behind them. The last person's going to take them, paper clip them, put them on the spin on my desk. Have you thought through all the aspects of all your procedures? And if you're a first-year teacher, that might feel a little bit overwhelming. Just do your best to think through each thing you're going to do, and just think exactly what will this look like? What will the logistics look like? If you're not a first-year teacher, just think back to last year. Was there an area of your classroom that just did not run well? It was almost like always causing problems. There was always confusion and hubbub. That's the area you want to focus on and think, okay, what did I do last year? What should I do differently? And spend some time thinking it through. Ask some fellow teachers for advice. You can ask in our Facebook group. You can ask someone at your school and think through what is the best procedure for this spot, for this situation, whatever it is. So sometimes we don't think it through on our end. But on other times, we just tell them and we don't actually teach the procedure. And this is where I said, from no matter what grade you teach, it's really important to actually teach the procedures. So to avoid mistake number 2, we're going to first of all think through good procedures for every area of your classroom. We already just talked about that. Just think through what didn't go well last year. What do I want to do differently this year? Then we're going to teach procedures intentionally. And I will admit to you guys, this is probably not going to be, this is not necessarily earth-shattering things, but these are things that all of us are prone to just skip over. I did a long-term sub-position this last October, and I will admit to you, even though I teach this course every year, I was tempted to not really focus on procedures. When students didn't really follow the procedure right, it's like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm only here for 6 weeks. They're fine. They're 10th graders. It's fine. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. It was fine for week 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5. But by the time I got to week 6 and 7, it was starting to waste class time. And if I would have been there any longer, it would have been a big problem. And I was just reminded again how important procedures are, especially it is so worth the time you invest in the beginning of the year it will pay dividends the whole rest of the year. So how are we going to teach procedures? Well, number 1, we are going to explain the procedure. This sounds silly, like duh, obviously, but it's got to be detailed. Let's go back to my example of passing in papers. Say, pass in your papers. What do I say? Okay, we're about to pass in our papers. Leslie, Eric, and John, you guys are going to start. You're going to pass it to the person next to you. You're going to wait for the stack. When you get it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Detailed, exactly what it's supposed to look like. Number 2 is practice. And that practicing, we're going to actually do it together. And before I get to practicing, I want to say, number 1 can take a variety of forms. For some procedures, I simply explain it and we move on to step 2. Depending on what the procedure is, modeling it together can be smart. Having students come up and show, let's show an example of what is a good way of doing this. Let's show an example of what's a not good way of doing this. It depends on your procedure. Something like passing in papers or just trying to get it done quickly, I'm probably just going to explain it and move on. But if it's a more complicated procedure, like how we want to sit in our morning meetings, or like, these things that are more nuanced, what is a kind response to this, or those types of things, then modeling can be super helpful. Like I said, especially when things are a little bit more complex and there's multiple ways to do it right and multiple ways to do it wrong. Okay, so you explain, that also can include modeling. Number 2, you practice. So this means you're actually doing it together. And so I don't like to explain procedures just in theory. I like to wait until the first time we do it. So I don't teach my passing in papers procedure just out of the blue. I teach it when it's time to pass in papers. I don't teach the exit of class procedure just randomly. I teach it the first time we're about to leave class. So actually do it together is step 2. A lot of teachers do this, but the magic, I'm telling you, is in steps 3 and 4. Step 3 is to correct anything that went wrong. And I just saw this comment from Lisa that ties in here so well. She says, middle school teachers have different procedures. So what's okay in one class is not okay in the next one. And sometimes that's tough on kids. That is so true. And we need to be sensitive to this. And that is why we need to spend time reinforcing our procedures, because, Isaiah might have just come from another class where they pass in papers another way, or the way they leave class looks different. And so we need to be kindly and compassionately and patiently correcting what goes wrong. So we say, oh man, Sarah, you forgot to wait for the stack. And Clayton, you need to make sure that your paper is facing the right direction. So we're actually noting what went wrong and kindly correcting it in understanding that they've got a lot going on, right? And then here's the magic. If it didn't go well, if it was more than just a minor thing, redo it. I don't care if they're 12th graders. If you do this, this is going to have a huge impact. Redoing what went wrong. And this can look different. You might actually, if it was bad, you might actually pass the papers out and have them do it all again. Or if it's coming into class and a kid runs into class, you might say, oops, Charlie, go back and run. Let's come back in correctly. So this could be a whole class. It could be individual. But the point of the redo is there's many reasons for this. Number one, it reinforces the procedure, right? Kids have lots of different procedures they're learning. If they actually redo it, that helps them learn. But number two, it also shows I mean what I say. And that intangible message is key, because if you say something and you don't follow through, you don't actually insist that it's done, the procedures are going to fall apart very quickly. And more than that, the way they view you as a teacher, that's going to fall apart too. That's going to translate to other things. If you don't really mean what you say when you tell them to do this procedure, you don't really mean what you say when you tell them to do this, or when you tell them that this is how their math centers work, or anything else. So it can really digress quickly. So when we kindly ask them to redo it and insist that they do, it sends so many intangible messages that are going to pay benefits all year long. Hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? I really think that you're going to find this helpful. Just a quick question before we go on. I'm going to check here. Susan says, if practicing lining up with second graders, do you name the student doing something wrong, or just have the whole class redo it? I think it's totally going to depend on the situation. If the whole class struggled with it, I'd have everyone redo it. And honestly, the first day, if just even a couple students mess it up, you might have everyone redo it. But it's okay also to use names. As long as I wouldn't shy away being like, I can't say anyone's name for fear of pointing them out. Just have this environmental attitude that we're all learning together. Like, I'm not putting you, and they'll just sense that in your tone. Like, I know, and you can say things like, I know there's so much to learn, but remember, Charlie, you got to do this, or yeah, you're doing a great job, but you forgot about this. Just keep your tone positive, and I think that'll work out for you really well. Teresa says, I would use positive reinforcement to praise students doing it right. Absolutely. So important to use that as well. I think that's especially effective in lower grades. Sometimes in secondary, that almost backfires. But in lower grades, that's a fantastic strategy. Do you name the student doing it wrong or recognize the students doing it right? I would say both, but it depends on the situation, right? If you're trying to get students to line up, let's say you're in a line and you're trying to get students to stand the right way, you might say, I love how Susan is standing. And then see if everyone straightens up, you're good. But then if you still have a couple that aren't getting it at that point, maybe you single them out because maybe they're not really paying attention and they need to hear their name to draw them back in. So yeah, use your discretion and do both, definitely. All right, if you have more questions, hang on to them. We'll do a Q&A at the end. Right now, let's move on to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 was my biggest mistake, letting the little things go. As I said, this was my kryptonite. It killed me. And what happened was that I did not have a plan. So I had just little problems going on in my classroom. Like, kids were just talking a little bit with their friends, or they were just putting their heads down and not really paying attention, but it wasn't a big disruption. And so what happened was I didn't want to nail them. I didn't want to hand them a detention for saying 2 things to their friends, right? So I thought, no big deal. It's just a little problem. It'll be fine, right? I have other things to worry about. I want to make a great class for them. I don't want to, all the reasons that we give, right? But here's the problem. I wish this weren't true. I so wish it weren't true. But if you've been teaching very long, you know that little problems don't stay little. I wish they did, but they grow and they become bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we need to be aware of that. This is just human nature, that little problems don't stay little. So to avoid this mistake, we have to deal with problems while they are still small, especially during the first weeks of school. See, sometimes we get conflicting advice, and you might have heard the phrase, pick your battles, or don't sweat the small stuff. Here's the thing about that phrase as it relates to teaching. In May, don't sweat the small stuff, right? You're dealing with big things. You've got so much going on. It's the end of the year. Yes, you're not nitpicking in May. But the first week of school, absolutely, you have got to sweat the small stuff because it can escalate. Maribel just said it can escalate so fast. And remember, you are setting the tone. And if you set a tone of a calm, structured learning environment, you can do anything with that class. You can do all the fun activities in October and November and April and May. But if you let all the little things go, and your class, it just escalates quickly, and you end up with a mess in your hands. I have been there. So many of you in the comments have been there. We don't want that to happen. So Susan says, can you give specific example of little things? Yes, little things like talking to a neighbor, putting a head down, getting up and walking around the desk, the room without permission, not following a procedure that seems simple, like not signing out the bathroom pass, like these little things, okay? Little things that seem like, they're not really causing a problem at the time. But just imagine, this is a good question to ask yourself. What if all my students were doing this? Like if you see one student just talking a little, what if all the students were talking? Would that be a problem? Yes, it would. Okay, I need to deal with it. I hope that's helpful. So next question is, what does deal with it mean? Okay. This is where I got hung up. I thought, well, if I'm going to deal with this, I have to give out a detention. And I don't want to give out a detention for just talking to your neighbor. That seems like overkill. But what I learned was that deal with doesn't have to mean this huge, big deal. Deal with can be as simple as noticing it and saying something, right? It can be as simple as, Charlie, please sit up. Or Aaron, you just ran into the classroom. Let's try that again. Can you go back and come in the correct way? Or, right? It can be really simple. If you have a classroom management plan, it just means following your plan. If you say this is what you're going to do, you do it. But it just basically means saying something, doing something. And in the first couple of days of school, maybe all you do is say something. Maybe there's no consequences, right? Because remember, everyone's learning, right? They're trying to figure it out. But you do need to have consequences ready. If you've told someone something 3 times and they're still doing it, then something needs to happen. But 9 times out of 10, all you need to do is just recognize it. And the students, once again, this is another intangible. They see that you're dealing with things. They see that. And so the problem, you nip it in the bud and the problems stay little. And then you don't have to hand out a ton of consequences, right? You have your classroom stays more controlled and you can do more fun things together. Because that is the goal, right? The goal isn't to be this like crazy strict teacher that never has any fun. The goal is to establish this classroom environment where students are focused, where you have their respect and they listen to you, so that then you can do all the fun activities that you want to. Hope that makes sense. Okay, any questions here? And then we'll dive into mistake number 4. We have a question. What do you do with a student who ignores or keeps doing it? Like, let's say you tell them to sit up and they keep putting their head down on the table. Okay. Well, this is I can give you a few things, but it's kind of case by case. It depends on the situation. So if it seems like, honestly, if it's like the first day of school, the first week of school, I would probably pull that student aside and just kind of approach it from that way and just say, hey, I noticed that you kept putting your head down. Is everything okay? And see what they say to you, and just kind of listen a little bit, show them that you care. But then you can finish the conversation with something like, you can also be clear with your expectations as part of that conversation and just say, you can't keep doing this. I expect all my students to do this, and I'm sure that's what you're going to do going forward. I would take a positive approach. I'm sure I'm not going to have a problem with this. I'm really excited to have you in my class. So you don't want to like immediately create this power struggle, right? So I would approach it more from like a positive, like I know this isn't going to be a problem. This is going to be, you're going to do this and it's going to be fine. If then it becomes more of a problem, then you might, like I said, you might have to bring in the consequences and all that. So be ready for that. But yeah, hopefully I wouldn't start there unless you really need to. Someone asked for consequence ideas. I can maybe go into more of those later, but in your notes, there's a whole list at the end of consequence ideas. I think we included it in your notes. So if you don't have the notes now, just write down the URL teachfortheheart.com/notes, and you can print it after the webinar. Okay, let's go into mistake number 4, and we can take a few more questions at the end. Mistake number 4 is worrying about being liked. Now, here's the thing. We all want to be liked, right? Is there anyone out there that would say, no, I don't care about this at all, okay? We all want to be liked. But are you worried about that? Are you focused on that? If so, we're going to create some problems. So we're going to talk about a few things to help us find that right demeanor as a teacher. So first thing, we don't want to try to be their friend. Instead, we want to be their mentor. So not a friend, but a mentor. And it's a little bit of a subtle shift, but it's really important because think about it. Sometimes our desire to be there for students, be able to make a difference in their lives, we want to be able to counsel them and instruct them and help them. And so sometimes we think, oh, I got to be their friend so that they come to me. But does a friend have expectations? Does a friend give homework? Does a friend give consequences? Does a friend that's not the relationship of a teacher to a student. It just doesn't work because at some point, your desire to be their friend is going to come up with your need to create a good classroom environment, and there's going to butt heads, and it's just not going to work. But a mentor, on the other hand, cares so much, right? You are there for them, right? A mentor is someone that wants to support. They're mentoring, they're pouring into, they're there to give advice and help. But it's not like a peer-to-peer relationship, right? The mentor, there's a clear mentor and mentee. So just that subtle mindset shift, if you've struggled with this in the past with I want to be their friend, try thinking of yourself instead as a mentor or a coach. And that is really helpful. So second thing, so don't be a friend, be a mentor. Second, don't worry about being liked. It is a natural thing, right? But try this instead. Every time you are tempted to be worried about being liked, instead focus on being respected, okay? So we want to deserve and earn their respect. And interestingly, if you are respected as a teacher, that you are way more likely to have those students look back and be like, I really liked them. They were a great teacher. If you try to get your students to like you, a lot of times that backfires even, and your class becomes out of control. And in the end, you have no respect, and they don't really like you or your class anyhow because it's just not a fun class to be in. So don't fall into that trap of worrying about being liked. Instead, focus on being respected. And I think that's really helpful. Another thing along these lines is don't start out with those crazy activities in an effort to be fun. So here's what I mean by that. Instead, let me tell you the other side and then I'll tell you what I mean. Instead, start with structure. Okay. Now, there is a lot of leeway in this advice to you. You can take it and apply it as you think best. But what I've seen happen sometimes is we think, okay, we really want to make the first day of school fun. And you do. But so the way I'm going to do it is we're going to do this crazy activity. We're going to do this scavenger hunt around the room. We're going to run over here and then we're going to run over there. And you come up with this elaborate, crazy activity. But you haven't yet set the structure to make that activity successful. And so as a result, it's just chaos. And maybe it's fun, but you've set the tone in your classroom that this classroom is chaos. It's much better to start out with structures. If you want to do an icebreaker that first day, maybe it's not a crazy, everyone's running around the room icebreaker. Maybe it's something really calm that you do at your desk or you do with a partner or you do as a whole group. And so you're starting out, I really recommend, especially if you're a veteran and you have this down, you might be fine with this. But if you're newer or if you've struggled with classroom management in the past, I highly recommend starting with structure. If you start with structure, you can, once you teach your students your routines and your procedures, and then you can gradually get into more of those things that are more interactive and all these more things going on, and you'll be able to do them successfully and be able to really do all those quote unquote fun activities. So I recommend starting with structure with the very, very, very important explanation that this does not mean that it's boring. You should be letting your passion and your excitement for your subject and for your students to shine through. So the goal is not to make the first day of school boring. The goal is to make it exciting, fun, but structured. That's my opinion, at least. You can take it or leave it. And we already talked about this one. Don't let the little things go, right? We're not going to let the little things go because we want our kids to like us. Instead, we are going to have high expectations and hold our students to them, right? And once again, that's the difference between wanting to be liked and respected, right? I'm not going to let everything go. I'm going to have high expectations. I'm going to hold you to it, and we're going to create an amazing classroom environment together. Okay, so to avoid mistake number 4, be both kind and firm. Have any of you ever felt a tension between these two? Sometimes it's almost as if we think, am I a kind stricter? Am I a nice teacher or a strict teacher? As if it has to be either or. You're the nice teacher or you're the strict teacher. You need to be the nice and the strict teacher. Be kind and firm. It is so important to be both simultaneously. If you're kind but not firm, you're going to be a pushover. If you're firm but not kind, you might have an ordered class, but the drill sergeant does not work very well. You're not going to have much actual impact. So we want to be nice. People should enjoy being in our class. We should be personable, right? Our personality can and should shine through. It should be fun to be in our class. We should be understanding, right? We should be empathetic with our students. When something goes wrong, we should have a compassionate and an understanding heart towards them. Hopefully, we're even fun to be around, right? But at the same time, so those are all part of being kind, we should also have high expectations, right? I have these expectations for you. I know you're going to rise to them. We deal with issues as they come up. You can kindly deal with an issue. Absolutely. And we should do it. And we're not a pushover. We mean what we say and we say what we mean and we stick to it and we're consistent. And so when all these things go together, it's really it just creates this wonderful demeanor as a teacher that can really set you up for success and thus set your students up for success. All right, one mistake left. I'm going to pause just a second. It looks like some of you guys want me to go over them. Okay, I'll go back. Just if you're filling in your notes. So don't try to be their friend. Do be their mentor. Don't worry about being liked. Do focus on being respected. Don't start with crazy activities just to be fun. Do start with structure. Don't let the little things go. Do have high expectations. And finally, we're going to be both kind and firm. Okay, just checking to see if we have any questions here before we move on to the next one. Abigail asks, how do I get them to respect me? The best thing is just what we were saying. Have high expectations, deal with the issues while they're small, and have a plan and stick to it just consistently. And we're going to talk about that here next. Oh my, how do you handle incessant tattletelling? That is a tough one. I taught middle schools. I didn't have it too much, but now I have it with my own kids, and it is a challenge. I think that's one, honestly, that you have to talk about and kind of build into your classroom culture. So I think that's kind of an ongoing conversation that you have to have with your class about when do we tell, when don't we tell, what are your motives for telling? I think this just kind of needs to be especially if you teach younger grades, kind of an ongoing conversation that you have a decent amount with your class to kind of teach that. Okay, let's move on to mistake number 5. Mistake number 5 is not being fully prepared. This is another one I totally made. So let me ask you a question. Do you know what you're going to do when a student just gets up in your class and wanders around the room? Do you know what you're going to do if students are being disruptive and messing up the lesson? Do you know what you're going to do if a student's on his phone when he's not supposed to be? Or what about when someone just blurts out an answer? Well, here's the thing. if we don't have a plan, oftentimes that's going to lead to a lack of confidence, right? So we're going to say, I don't have a plan, so I don't really know what I'm going to do, right? And then when it happens, I don't do anything because I don't know what to do. And because I don't do anything, those little problems don't stay little, and pretty soon we have a mess on our hands. Maybe this isn't true of everyone, but this is exactly what happens to me. And I know it's happened to a lot of other teachers as well, right? I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do. And so I had no confidence. I didn't do anything, and it led into a mess. And honestly, my professors tried to warn me. I remember them saying, you need to write down a plan. You need to write down, what are you going to do when a student is talking without permission, when a student wanders around the room, when a student's being disrespectful. You need to know exactly what you're going to do. And I don't know. I don't know if I just forgot. I think I just got so caught up in all the academic preparation that I just did not prepare that part. And it led to disaster. So let's talk a little bit. How can we avoid this mistake? Well, we need to have a plan for pretty much everything. Now, if you're a veteran and you've been doing this a long time, that plan is probably in your head, and you have the confidence and you're good to go. But if you're new, or if you've struggled with classroom management at all in the past years, it is so helpful to have a plan written down. Even if you don't follow that plan exactly, having the plan will really build your confidence. And like I said, writing it out is an incredibly worthwhile exercise. Absolutely. So let's talk about just a couple areas, what your plan could be. So these are just some suggestions. So one area that you're going to need a plan for is regaining attention, right? So when your students, either when things just get disruptive or when it's intentional, right? You do a turn and talk with your neighbor, or they're working in a small group or working at centers. How do you regain their attention? Well, how many of you guys use class response or call and response sayings? These guys can be, these sayings are a wonderful strategy. And honestly, they can work all the way up through high school if you modify them and find ones that work and that relate to the age of your students. So the way they work, if you're not familiar with them, is that you say the teacher part and the class responds with the class part. So for example, you would say class, and the class responds yes, or all set, you bet. And what's great, and you can come up with your own fun ones too, right? So what's great about this is that in order for them to respond, they have to stop the conversation they're having in order to respond. And so it's so much more effective than just standing up at the front of the room with like your hand up, or flicking the lights, because you're actually asking them to respond. And there's so many other strategies around here. Some people say, if you can hear me, clap your hands. There's so many different things that work. If you have one that works for you, great. But if you don't, I strongly encourage you to try one of these. They work really well. Remember, you teach it like a procedure, you explain it, you practice it, you correct it, you redo it. Especially if you teach older grades, they might be a little hesitant at first, but if you make it fun, and if you insist and you have them redo it until they do it well, and you're just patiently insistent, they'll do great. Okay, what about chatter or blurting? Kaylee asked, can you give an example of one that would be good for high school students? I'm going to throw that out to you guys. Do any of you guys have high school students, have found ones that work with them? Taylor says they love music, so something related to like a popular song, or things in pop culture can be really helpful. I don't know if anyone has any specific ones that work well. All right, let's talk about chatter and blurting. Like I said, we can answer way more questions here at the end. So chatter, by the way, one last thought. You can also do call and response that relate to what you're studying, right? You can, if you're in history, it could be something related to history, or English, it can be something related to literature, etc. So just an idea. Okay, one of the most common problems we teachers face is chatter and blurting. And it's so frustrating because, like I said, this is one of those little problems that we wish we could just ignore, but we just can't. It escalates, and soon we have a crazy mess on our hands. So what are we going to do with chatter and blurting? I'm going to give you 2 ideas. These are just ideas to get your mind thinking. You can use one of these as I explain it. You can come up with your own. You can modify them to fit your classroom. Totally up to you. These are just a couple ideas. So option one is a warning system. This is a system that was explained to me by my mentor teacher, and it was also recommended in the First Days of School book. And I kind of modified it a little bit, and it really worked really well. So I'll explain how it works, and you can decide if it would work for you. So if a student is talking, you give them an actual warning. Now, a big key to this system is you don't stop teaching, right? The goal is to not interrupt the flow of your teaching. So you actually give a warning in some type of tangible way. The First Days of School recommended actually writing a name on the board, which you can do if that's like kosher with your school environment and you're comfortable with that. A lot of teachers aren't comfortable actually putting kids' name on the board. So other options include, I think there's so many different ways you can give warnings, but just to give you an idea, one of my favorites that one teacher told me is they take little yellow cards and laminate them, and so they're like a yellow card you'd get in soccer. And when they want to give a warning, they take one of these yellow cards and they just place it on a student's desk, and then they have to give it back to them after class, right? So what matters is that there's just a tangible thing that means you've been disrupting class, you need to stop. That's all it means, right? And that is really important part of this system. If you're using this system, you need your students to understand that a warning is just a warning. They're not in trouble. There's no consequences. You're not mad at them. They don't need to defend themselves. It is just a warning. It is just a call for them to reflect on what's happened and make a better choice. That's it. It is very important to explain that and to repeat that, because otherwise sometimes they get upset about it. In my class, what happened was if they got 3 warnings in the same 45-minute class period, then there was an actual consequence. In my school, it was a discipline essay. It might be whatever it can be whatever makes sense for you and your school situation. It doesn't really matter how you set this up. If you're in elementary, you might reset it at lunch, or you can have it last all day, or you can make it 2 warnings is something. You can make it 5 warnings is something. It doesn't really matter. Find what works for you, but there does need to be some type of action if they're not self-correcting, right? If you're giving them warning after warning and nothing is changing, then that's not doing any good. And there does need to be some type of consequence. Otherwise, the system has no, you know what I mean? Otherwise, they're just going to ignore your warnings because they know they don't mean anything. So the warning should just be a warning, but they need to heed it. If they don't heed it, then something else happens. Does that make sense? I love this system. I will tell you, it feels like a juvenile system. I used this in middle school, and I had to explain it to them. I'm not trying to treat you like elementary. This is just a way for us to stay on track without causing problems. But I will be honest, sometimes there was a part of me that's I don't want to use this system, but it works so these are some of the reasons why I did use it and it works so well. It promotes individual responsibility. Have you ever been in front of the class and just been class, stop talking, class. And the kids that are the biggest culprits are totally tuned you out, right? They're not even realizing. So it's really helpful to actually have the kids that are causing problems to help them realize, okay, I'm the problem. I need to self-correct. I love that you curb the behavior without nagging or punishing. You're not constantly saying class, stop talking. You're using action. You're giving a warning. And honestly, I rarely had to give consequences. With 100 students, 6 classes a day, I probably gave out 8 consequences a year. It was maybe 12 in the whole year. It was pretty rare. The system works really well. So that's why I recommend it to you. Another thing to keep in mind real quick before I move on to the second option is that this can be a temporary thing. You can start out with this system and use it in August and September and maybe October and then start phasing it out. You might not need it anymore. Or maybe in the future years, you won't need it anymore. But if you're struggling, a system like this can be really helpful. Another option is whole brain teaching. We already talked about call and response to regain attention, but you can use call and response sayings to reinforce rules. So let's say rule 2 is raise your hand for permission to speak. Well, you can teach your class by teaching procedures that when you raise your hand and go rule 2, that they are to respond out loud, raise your hand for permission to speak. So if someone blurts out an answer, you just go, oops, let's all remember rule 2, and the whole class responds out loud, raise your hand for permission to speak. This is probably better for elementary through maybe middle school, but do you see how it's really great because you are reinforcing the right procedure without even having to do much of anything, right? But you immediately, once again, this is another example of dealing with it, right? You called it out and you reinforce what's supposed to happen without taking a ton of time, without the goal isn't to embarrass the student, it's just to correct and move on, right? There's so many other great ideas within whole brain teaching. You can check it out online. We also talk about it in our Classroom Management 101 course. We talk a little bit more about whole brain teaching. So, to avoid mistake number 5, you need to build your confidence. It is so important. Confidence is once again one of those intangibles. If you walk into that classroom confident, students will sense that. And they'll respond to you way different than if they sense that you have no confidence and you don't know what you're going to do. And then it's almost like a shark to blood. It is not good, right? So you need to build your confidence. And one of the best ways to do that is actually practicing out loud, especially if you're feeling low on confidence. Stand in front of a mirror or, talk with a spouse or a friend and say, hey, can I practice what I'm going to say if someone, is talking out loud, or what I'm going to do if someone just gets up and walks around the room? And all these things can be really helpful. And once again, we talked about a couple spots, right? We talked about chatter blurting, regaining attention, but we're already getting to the end of our hour, and we didn't get a chance yet to talk about disrespect or backtalk or, just the student that wanders around the room or the class clown or any of these things. So think through all these different scenarios, as many as you can. We do talk about all those in Classroom Management 101. So, to just what we were saying, how do you put together a plan? Well, there's a couple things you can do. Number 1, talk with other teachers. Hopefully there's other teachers at your school or at your church that you can talk to and get ideas from. If not, I hope that you'll join our Facebook group. I believe teachfortheheart.com/group. It's either that or teachfortheheart.com/Facebook. You can join our Facebook group if you don't have great people in your real life that you can get advice from. If you do this, you are going to set yourself up for success. But one of the challenges of classroom management is that classroom management is actually quite nuanced. And what I mean by that is one missing element can really throw everything off. You can be doing like 10 things right, but missing a few key elements, and things can start to fall apart. Like, for example, if you were doing all the things I said, but you were letting things go, or you didn't have the right demeanor, or, all these 1 or 2 things can really sabotage your best efforts. And we've gone through a lot of them today, but we didn't have time to go through everything. And that's why I wanted to let you know that we do have a complete course called Classroom Management 101 that will walk you through how to develop a plan, how to implement that plan. And it goes into so many more areas than we had time to do on the training tonight. It is a complete organized system to ensure you don't miss any of the crucial elements. And we guide you step by step through the process to help you develop and then implement a strong classroom management plan. Some of the things we talk about in the course, we talk about how do I develop the right mindset. We talked about that a little tonight, but we go into detail much more. We help you prepare your plan. We talk about rewards, about consequences, about expectations. What should your expectations be? What should your procedures look like? What does your class welcome sheet look like? And all those practical things. Module 3, we didn't even hardly get to talk about this today, is how to prevent problems from happening in the first place. There's so many things you can do that will help with that. Module 4, we get into specifics. How do you address various problems like backtalk, or class clown? How do you have a conversation with a student? How do you have a conversation with a parent? And all those practical details. Module 5, we talk about how to inspire and motivate your students to learn, because when your students are more engaged, you have fewer problems. And Module 6, we talk about some common challenging situations, like what do you do with cell phones? What if you get a new student mid-year? How about the girl drama that's so common in upper elementary and middle school? And so many other, what do you do with transitions and the start of class? So many other of those just challenging situations, and we troubleshoot them one by one. The course is set up with video lessons to guide you through each strategy. Each one is just 5 to 10 minutes, so it's really easy to grab one here and there or sit down and watch a bunch at once. And that's what's so great. You can watch at your own pace. If you enroll today, you are not going to lose access. You will keep your access indefinitely. So you can make sure that you have it. You also have a printable manual with the notes already taken for you. So you have that that you can use. So I wanted to make it as easy as possible for you so that you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to take notes yourself. So who is this for? Well, it's for grades 1 through 12. Or K through 12 rather. So it takes the principles and you can apply them across a broad spectrum. It is fantastic for new teachers, or if you're struggling with your class at all, if you've been struggling at all to control your class and create that great environment. It also is for those that feel like, I've got a lot of this down, but I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing one or two of those crucial elements. There's also some awesome bonuses. We have a pre-course evaluation to help you identify your trouble areas, an easy reminder system that will help you remember what you learned and apply it. And my favorite bonus, okay, this is great, the back to school bonus module. So if you're saying, okay, this course sounds great, but I don't know if I have time to do this before school starts, the back to school bonus module will get you up and running right away. It will reinforce some of the things we talked about today and give you even more. So you can start just with that back to school bonus module, and that will give you what you need to start, and then you can go through the rest as you have opportunity. Normally, the cost for an individual license is $119. However, today and for the next week, we are offering pay what you can afford pricing. So what that means is that you can choose to pay either $100, $75, or $50. You can choose to pay the amount that you can afford. There's also a payment plan available if you want to split it up. And we offer a 30-day money-back guarantee because we don't want you to worry, okay? If you found this training helpful, this is what the course is like. But if you, for any reason, get in there and it's not what you expected, you can ask for a refund anytime within the first 30 days. We make it so easy. We just say, okay, I refunded it. And that's the end of it, okay? So you don't have to worry about what if it isn't what I thought that it would be. If this sounds great to you, you should see a Join Now button have popped up on your screen. You can go ahead and click that now and get some more details. But I wanted to tell you about a couple more things, and then we're going to get into our Q&A. So hang with me. I just got a couple more things to share. If you join today, that pay what you can afford will be available for another about like 9 days. If you need more time, if you can't join tonight, but if you can join tonight, there's a couple special fast action bonuses. One, I will send you tomorrow a copy of Create Your Dream Classroom, our book. You'll also get the classroom procedures that will save your sanity training. That's the one we offered if you invited friends, but if you didn't get to invite friends, you can get it now. I'm also going to be doing a giveaway. So one, I'm going to be drawing a name out of everyone who joins tonight and picking one winner to get a free half-hour coaching session. So we're really excited about that. Okay, so once again, you can join now by clicking that blue Join Now button. And just one thing to realize, make sure you hit Add Coupon. You actually add your coupon and you should see the price drop. So make sure you see the price drop before you hit Enroll, and you'll be good to go. I hope to see you guys over there. You can go ahead and check that out now while I answer some of the questions that you guys have been asking. Let's see. Welcome, Tori, though, to Classroom Management 101. So glad to have you. Okay, let's see what some of the questions are that you guys have. Just one second. I'm going to pull up the queue and see what we can answer here. And by the way, if I'm not getting to your question, feel free to ask it again. Sometimes they get lost when the group is so busy. Okay, Amber says, can you implement the warning option and whole brain at the same time? I think in theory you could, but it would kind of just depend how you're trying to do it. So if I were trying to do both, I would probably separate them for different things. So I like to use the warning system specifically for talking because that's just like this little thing that we have to deal with. And then you could use whole brain teaching for other areas, for call and response, to regain attention, to reinforce other rules. So you can definitely mix it up if you'd like to. Okay. What was option 2 under chatter and blurting? The whole brain teaching, where you say rule 2, raise your hand for permission to speak, and you use call and response. Someone asked, I paid for Classroom Management 1 in the past. Can I still access it? Absolutely. If you enroll in Classroom Management 101, you keep your access indefinitely. So if you can go to academy.teachfortheheart.com and log in anytime, and it's still there. You can redo it as many times as you want. And if you can't get it, just email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and we'll help you get back in. Welcome to Emily and Anna and Lauren. So glad to have you guys in the course. That's awesome. Let's see. Okay. How do you deal with a child that has faced so much at-home trauma that consequences or warnings have no effect? They are just trying to survive the day. This is a great question because we do need to really be aware that this is something that's happening. So, first of all, I would say 2 things to that. Number 1, we don't want to negate, completely throw our classroom management plan out the window because there are a few students that are dealing with these big issues, right? Because remember, the majority of the class is going to be able to follow your plan. Okay, so you don't want to just say, well, what if I have one kid this, so I need to throw the whole plan out the window. You don't. You just need to work on building that calm environment. But with that student where you can sense something's going on here, you need to work to build that relationship. And biggest thing is you just need to be aware that that's happening and just be very understanding with them and give them a lot of grace. Okay. So maybe you handle situations with them differently than everyone else. That is totally fair and right to do because our goal isn't fairness. It's what's best for everybody. We're actually having a podcast episode coming out on next Monday, I believe, where we talk with Janine McConaughey, and she has written a book about trauma in young kids, and it's trauma. Anyhow, check out the podcast, teachfortheheart.com/podcast. Subscribe because it comes out Monday. Okay. Welcome to Caitlin and Ruth and Katie and Tony and Sarah and Jennifer. We're so glad to have you inside Classroom Management 101. Welcome. Okay, Kaylee asks, when is Classroom Management 101? Is it open whenever? Yes, it is totally at your own pace. So everything is in there right now. You can do the whole thing tonight or you can wait until next summer. It's totally up to you. So it's at your own pace. You can do it whenever you'd like. Is there a certificate offered for renewal credit? Yes, you can download your certificate of attendance for this training at teachfortheheart.com/certificate. We'll send this email out, this link out in the email probably tomorrow as well, but you can download it right now also if you would like. Okay. Abigail asks, for older kids on the first day of school, should I have an activity on the board for them to start working on? Have them sit and I give an intro to the class, or should I jump in and start procedures on how to walk in and sit, etc.? Okay, this is a great question. And honestly, there's so many different ways you can start the day, but I will share what I do. And this is in middle school. So I start out with I really think through that first day of school. I want everything to be as smooth and as structured as possible and as little chaos as possible. So I actually start out, I put numbers on all my desks. And when students come in, there's a seating chart on the board with numbers. So it'll say their name and what number seat they are. So I have them immediately go to their seat, pass out their textbooks. I do have a little activity for them to do. Normally it's just to get to know me or something fun or easy. So there's something at their desk that they can get started on right away. And then I do my best to only go over on the first day the procedures they need for that day. So there's always some introductory things you need to do. And I just introduce procedures as I need them. So I talk about, we normally pass in the paper they just worked on, so we talk about passing in the paper. There's normally 1 or 2 other things. I try to actually teach something on day 1. I try to get into the material and actually do something. And it's kind of a nice refresher for them, especially in middle school where they've been bouncing from class to class to class, right? So we actually try to teach something, and then I go over our end of class procedure. I end early so we can go over the end of class procedure. That's what my first day looks like. But it's up to you. There's so many. There's not only one right way to do it. Welcome to Natalie and Jennifer and Destiny and Barbara, Heather, Ann, Celesta. Oh, that's a pretty name. I hope I didn't pronounce it wrong. Erica, Lesia, Teresa, Naomi, Wendy, Ruth, Dawn, Sarah, Stephanie, Diana, Rachel, Tanya, Megan, Carrie. I can't even keep track with everybody. I'm sorry if I'm missing you and welcoming you. Josephine, Anne Marie, Deborah, Michelle. So glad to have all you guys. This is awesome. Susan asks, if I sign up for the $50 option, can I still pay that in installments? Yes, all the options you can choose to split them up. There, you'll see that option on the page to either do one time or split it up into two. Let's see. Someone asked, I think I joined Classroom Management 101 last year. How do I check before signing in? Well, if you use the same email, it shouldn't let you sign up twice. But you can go to academy.teachfortheheart.com and try logging into your account there. And if it's there, then you've already signed up. And if not, then it's not. But yeah, it shouldn't let you sign up for it twice unless you use two different emails. Okay, this question we get every time. I already purchased Classroom Management 101. Can I still get the bonus items? Yes, if you email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. So send us an email, say, I was on the live webinar. I'm already an owner of Classroom Management 101. Can I get the bonuses? And we'll send them to you. Please be patient with us. I have Alex and Sarah are our wonderful customer service managers, but our queues are a little bit crazy right now. So it might take us a little bit to get back to you, but we definitely will. Okay, if you still have questions, feel free to add them. Again, I want to make sure we're getting these answers. Okay, let's see. How do we get the Create Your Dream Classroom as an ebook? Well, if you're wanting it as the bonus, you just sign up for Classroom Management 101 tomorrow, probably late morning. I'm going to go in and download the list of everyone, and I'll send everyone the bonuses, okay? Let's see. I missed the coupon code. Yes, here's the coupon codes, but if you hit that Join Now button right there on the training, then it will have those codes on the page for you, so you don't have to remember them. Welcome to Gretchen, Christina, Leslie, Sherry, Jenny, Sharon, Carla, Daryl, Sarah, Catherine, Yasmin, Michelle, April, Lisa, Barb, Beth, Naomi. Some of you guys are upgrading too, which is awesome. We also have a Beyond Classroom Management class, which kind of gives you the next level, talking about how to build respect, responsibility, engagement. So some of you guys are upgrading, which is fantastic. Okay. All right, so it is 9:33, which means we've been on here just over an hour. So this is kind of where our official webinar ends, but I'm going to stay on and answer a few more questions for you guys. So feel free to stay on and continue asking your questions if you have a question that I haven't gotten to yet. You might want to ask it again, just because, like I said, I'm getting a little lost. There's so much in here on what we had and what we didn't. So someone asked for certificate info. It's at teachfortheheart.com/certificate. Emily says, start out with prayer. Yes, that is such an important part. Absolutely. Daniel asked, does the certificate include CEUs? I'm not sure if you're talking about the webinar or Classroom Management 101. Both the webinar and Classroom Management 101 have a certificate with them that says the hours on it. We cannot guarantee CEUs because it totally depends on your school and your district. We do have the classes certified with ACSI. If you teach at a Christian ACSI school, then you can contact us and we can give you credit for that. But that's the only organization that they're currently actually certified with. But a lot of schools and districts will take them with the certificate. Let's see what else we have here. Okay. How is Create Your Dream Classroom different from the management course? Okay, Create Your Dream Classroom is a book and it contains 50 short lessons on a variety of topics. So it's really great to be like re-inspired and just get some fresh new ideas to reflect on your past year and prepare for the next year. It's really designed to be read over the summer. And it's a book, so it's kind of more fun, relaxed format. Classroom Management 101 is an organized course to take you through step by step. So we're going to say, start with this, now do this, now get this ready. And we walk you through each lesson, each module. And so it's like everything in one place, an organized system. Does that make sense? Okay. Jen asked, if I can only afford 50, do I just pay 50 and that's all? I don't have to pay the 119. Correct. That's how it works. So you can choose to say I'm paying 50 and that's all you pay. You can join for just 50. We really want this course. If you need this course, we don't want cost to be an object. We want it in your hands. And so that's why we run this promotion twice a year. We probably The plan, at least, isn't to run this again until next March. So it's, but we always love that we're able to do it because it's so helpful for so many teachers I know. Welcome to our new members, Kyle, Mary, Sarah, Kim, Lene, Audrey, Anne, Jennifer, Carrie, Celeste, T, Aaron, Debbie, Daryl, Mary Ann. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to see all you guys inside of there. Okay. Leanne, thank you so much for your kind words. She says, if anyone hasn't purchased the online course yet, do it. It is incredibly fantastic. That's so kind of you. Brittany asked, do you ever have anyone try to hide the yellow cards? Okay, I actually haven't had the opportunity to try out the yellow cards personally, but I would imagine that that is a possibility. So you definitely want to make it clear to them that you know who you gave the yellow card to, and maybe you also maybe you do have some type of, you know, roster in front of you where you put little check marks by people so that you know, right? So yeah, so so it's not just about the card. Susan asks, is it true that we have 9 days to be able to join? Yes. So you have just over a week to join at the pay what you can afford rate. You won't get those special extra bonuses, the fast action bonuses, but you'll still get the back to school module, and you still can have that special rate. So I will send you guys emails when it's periodically over the next week to remind you about it and to make sure you know when the last call is for that. Misty's asking, can we update later? I'm actually not sure what you mean by update. Do you mind clarifying your question? If you're saying upgrade, yes, you can upgrade later. But that special price won't be around forever. So let me know if you want to clarify your question. Leanne asks, what are my thoughts on reward systems for middle school? What ideas can I give? So reward systems for middle school, I have different thoughts about this. When I was preparing for Beyond Classroom Management, which is our course that comes after Classroom Management 101, I read a lot about rewards and thought about this a lot. And one of the most helpful things that I found was the idea of pairing extrinsic rewards with intrinsic rewards. So for example, let's say that you do have some type of reward system where you give out student of the month or a dress down pass or a free homework pass or like whatever it is. To pair that with an intrinsic reward where you acknowledge the student's work. So something like, so it's the difference between saying, oh, you worked really hard, here's a pass, or saying, wow, doesn't that feel great to know how hard you worked? That is going to pay huge dividends. And I hope that this dress down pass will help you remember the hard work you put into this. Do you see the difference between just like, we're just using the thing as a reward and then actually pairing it with the best reward is what you did and the character you're building, and here's something to kind of help reinforce that. I don't know if that's helpful at all. Adam asks, can I go over the first day again? I don't want to take too much time going over the whole thing again, but in a nutshell, I start out with assigned seats, so I know where everyone is. I try to keep everything really structured. I go over only the procedures I need to go over that day. I don't do fire drill day 1 because we're not having a fire drill day 1. I save it for when we're about to have a fire drill or day 2 or whatever. I only go over what we need to go over what we're actually doing in class. I do have an activity when they first get there, something easy, something simple, and I try to actually teach something day 1. So I try not to spend the whole day on procedures. We're going to spend a lot of time over the whole first week or 2 on procedures, but I don't want that to be all we do. Hope that helps. Okay, Heather says, I asked a question about keeping yourself composed with students that continue to misbehave in class. How would you do that, and what steps would you take to be prepared for it? Okay, so you do need to be prepared. What am I going to do if a student is just completely, not responding, right? So a couple things, it kind of is going to depend on the situation. Honestly, I would probably, it's going to depend on your school culture, but a couple ideas, and you can kind of pick what makes sense for you and adapt. But like I said, one thing that you can, like a pocket phrase you can have ready if you need it, is to simply say, I'm going to have to do something about that. So if you have a student that's kind of challenging you on day 1, you don't really want to have a battle in the middle of the class, but you want the whole class to see, like, I'm not just letting this. You can say out loud, man, that's really unfortunate. I'm going to have to do something about that. I'll talk to you later. Right? So you show the whole class something's going to happen, but then that gives you time to go back and think and maybe have a conversation. And so then maybe you actually say after class, hey, can I talk to you? And you talk to them about it. If it's something subtle, like they're just keeping their head down and the whole class isn't noticing, then you maybe don't have to say anything like that out loud. You can just pull them aside after or go find them. So it's tough. It's a tough balance. I think you definitely want to be building relationships, reaching out, trying to, we didn't even talk about that on this webinar because there's so much to talk about. We talk about that a whole lot more within the course, the importance of building relationships. I do think that you want to start there, but also like have a few things ready. If you have to give consequences defying you, I would be prepared for that, but I would not make that my first resort, if that makes sense. Jen says, if you do pay what you can afford, do you pay the one price? Oh, hold on, let me just read this. Okay. Jen, if you choose pay what you can afford, it's just, that's it. If you choose $50, you pay $50. If you choose $75, you pay $75. You don't have to, that's it. You get it for that price, nothing else. The only time you'd be charged again is if you choose the payment plan. If you choose to split it up into 2 payments, then you pay half now and half in 1 month. That's the only time there'd be an additional charge. Can you tell us how to upgrade if we've already purchased the first course? Oh, great question. Okay. So if you want to upgrade to Beyond Classroom Management, I have to find, you know what? I will tell you the secret. These codes work for Beyond Classroom Management too over the next week. So if you go to academy.teachfortheheart.com, or if you go to teachfortheheart.com and hit courses. So go to teachfortheheart.com, hit courses at the top, find Beyond Classroom Management, and sign up with these codes. Let me put the codes up again. Afford 50, afford 75, afford 100. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, so if you've already taken Classroom Management 101, you can use these codes over the next week to also get Beyond Classroom Management for the same price. Yeah, we're offering this on both of them, which I'm so excited about. Okay. All right. We're just trying to finish up these last few questions. How is Classroom Management 101 different from Beyond Classroom Management? Great question. Classroom Management 101 is like the first step. So it really is laying a strong foundation. Like I said, I look at it as everything you need to create a controlled, calm teaching environment. Okay. We walk through all that. Beyond Classroom Management builds on that. So it's the idea that now that you have the foundation, let's take it to the next level. And Beyond Classroom Management deals with like, how do I really cultivate respect? How do I teach students to be responsible? How do I create this like environment where we're working together and everyone's engaged? We talk about that in Classroom Management 101 too, but Classroom Management 101 is more the foundation. And then this is like the next layer on top of it, like really taking things to the next level, if that makes sense. Lisa asks, how long would it take to do the whole course? The whole course is a little over 6 hours, 7 if you do 7 or 8 if you do all the bonus things, if you like go through it all at once. I signed up for your Classroom Management course. Do I still have to pay for the whole course of CM 101? Do I recommend signing up for CM 101 even if I will be teaching pre-K? Okay, so those are 2 different questions. The mini course, I definitely still recommend Classroom Management 101. The mini course is kind of like this training. It's like a lot of really helpful stuff, but it only scratches the surface of what's in Classroom Management 101. Do I recommend signing up for CM 101 even though you're pre-K? Okay, this is a tough question because you're definitely going to find a lot of helpful things. You're going to be able to, but you're going to, not everything will be relevant. So there'll be a lot of helpful things and a lot of things that you'll just have to think through and think, okay, what does this principle look like in pre-K? Kind of like on this webinar tonight, when I gave examples, you'd say, okay, I can take that principle. What would that look like in pre-K? If you're looking for help, remember you can sign up and you have 30 days to ask for money back. So if you think you're going to be able to get to the course in the next 30 days, you can sign up under this promotion, check it out. And if you're like, this really isn't as relevant as I thought it would be, just you just email us and we'll refund your money. So that's the best I can do with that one. Okay, just trying to finish up these last ones. I'm just going up the queue here. Do you have any suggestions for how I can be firm and kind? I started out as just kind and the kids all liked me. 5 years later, I've become firm, but now I seem the mean teacher. I have a hard time balancing not being a pushover, but not being too strict and mean. Any suggestions? My biggest recommendation here is to be kind while you're being strict. So like at the same time. So when you have to say, go back and come in the room correctly, or here's a consequence, or whatever it is, I can say, go back and come in the room correctly in a frustrated voice. Do it again. Or I can say, wow, you're really on the ball today, Eric, but remember, that's not how we come into class. Let's try it again. And there's a big difference there, right? One is like it comes across as mean, frustrated, annoyed, or some teachers straight out yell, which is its own disaster. Or I can do it in a kind way. So that's the best thing I would say is pair both of them. Be kind while you're being strict. I hope that helps a little bit. What address do I send my email to get the bonus materials? Linda@teachfortheheart.com. Linda@teachfortheheart.com. Angela, if I pay $50, will it be the complete course? Yes, absolutely. Nothing is excluded. By the way, welcome to Allison, Linda, Susan, Marilyn, Connolly, Jerland, I probably said that name wrong and it's so pretty. Josephine, Angie, Susan, Mary, Rose, Ashley, Susan. So glad to have all of you. Is there a certificate for this session? Yes, it's right here. Do I have 9 days to decide if I can join? Yes, and we'll email you and let you know. But those special bonuses, Create Your Dream Classroom, the classroom procedures that will save your sanity, and entered for the coaching is only for those that are here live. If I pay $50, will it be the complete course? Yes. How many credits is it? Well, it's 6 hours is listed on the certificate. So whatever that applies in your district or school. What is the pay what you can afford code? Here it is. Please tell me the email address again. Linda@teachfortheheart.com. Can you upgrade to Beyond Classroom Management later on? Yes, you can always buy it later, but the upgrade, if you want the pay what you can afford pricing, we're doing these promotions together. So you want to upgrade within the next week or so, you can use the same codes. How long does it take to complete the course? We already said that about 6 hours. Thank you for the class. Oh, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. Does a special price go with any of the other courses you offer? Classroom Management 101 and Beyond Classroom Management are the ones currently we're offering this for. Okay. All right, we're almost here at the top. Is there a limit to how long you take to complete the course? Nope. You can take as long as you want. I have people that have done it for years. We've upgraded the course since then, but they still have access. So if you don't lose your access. Okay, great question here. Faith asks, what's the difference between Classroom Management 101 and the Classroom Management 101 bundle? So the bundle just means you're adding on Beyond Classroom Management. So if you see upgrade to the bundle, that means you want to, you'll get that option. So after you sign up for Classroom Management 101 and it says you want to upgrade to the bundle, that's basically paying an additional $50 to also get Beyond Classroom Management because the bundle has both courses in it. Hope that makes sense. You can't get this link for the certificate, then write this down. It'll be on there tomorrow. Sometimes our site is getting so much traffic at the same time it can't handle it. So if you write this down, you can print it tomorrow. How do you deal with a student who is volatile and lashes out physically? That's a tough one. I would get administration involved definitely with that. All right, guys, thank you so much. Maribel, do the strategies work relate to special needs students? Okay, these courses are not specifically geared towards special needs. So if you work exclusively with special needs, they might not be Beyond Classroom Management would still be a good fit because we talk about a lot of things that I think can be easily adapted. But if you have if you work with a regular class and that, I think you'd find it helpful. But yeah, it's not geared specifically for that. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. I really need to, we should probably close this up soon, but let me just answer these couple more questions. Kathleen said, never mind. But if anyone accidentally pays too much, just email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Tell us the situation and we'll take care of it for you. That happens every year. Let's see, just a couple more questions here. I am the only half-day kindergarten teacher at my school. I tend to be given the students who have special needs who have a harder time following the rules. I also feel like expectations have to be adjusted at least somewhat, but I feel that it's also confusing for the rest of the students. Yes, this is a little bit of a tough balance, especially when you've got young students. But a couple thoughts. Number one, As much as possible, I would try to pull them up to the expectations of the rest of the class. Meaning, when we start by lowering the expectation, we do them a disservice. So sometimes we do need to make adaptations. I'm not saying we don't make adaptations, but start out with the assumption that they can do what everyone else does. And start off with that and see what happens, right? If you think there's a wise modification to be made, think that through. Think, what would a wise modification be? And explain it to them. And maybe, if it comes up with the whole class, then you can kind of have that conversation as a larger group, how different learners need different things or whatever it is. But yeah, start out with the same expectations and then just modify as needed and do it in a way and try to find ways where it doesn't disrupt the rest of the class. That's a great question to ask in our Facebook group too. I never taught kindergarten, although I have those are the age of my kids, so I can relate to it. But our Facebook group is a great spot to get advice of so many people. Welcome to Renee, Bethany, Chris, Meredith, Dawn, Christy, Debbie, Bria, Aline, Allison, Chris. So glad to have you guys. Okay. I ran an after-school program K through 5. Would my materials apply? Yes, it would. Yes, it would. The courses are written for classroom teachers, but you could definitely take it and apply it to that. Once again, you got the 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's not specifically for that, but I've had people take the course for Sunday school, for like all kinds of different things, and found it helpful. So I think it would be helpful, even though it's not geared for that, but you can check it out for yourself and make, like I said, if it's not, you can just ask for your money back. Okay, one more time, the link to upgrade, please. It should be right here in this Join Now button. It should be right there. But you can also go to academy.teachfortheheart.com and use these codes. Let's see. Is the cost for each course? Yes. So this is just for Classroom Management 101. If you want to upgrade or add on beyond Classroom Management, they're normally $119 each. We're offering them both at pay what you can afford. So if you want to get both, it is like, you have to pay for each separately, but they're both on, you can pay what you can afford for both of them. Well, the bonus materials, enrolling in Classroom Management 101 tonight, going to be emailed tonight or tomorrow. They're going to be emailed tomorrow. So if you are like still in the enrollment process and you're still working on it, you don't have to like frantically do it before I close the webinar here in a minute. You can sign up anytime tonight, like extend it through the rest of the night. I'm probably going to email them out sometime, probably late morning tomorrow. So yes. How often do people ask for a refund? That's a great question. Very rarely. We have about 4,000 students in the course. I don't know how many refunds I've done, but yeah, I would say like 1% maybe, if that. It's a very small amount. Okay, guys, I think those are all the questions that you guys had right now. Thank you so much for being here. If I didn't get to your question, feel free to email me at linda.teachfortheheart.com. And like I said, I hope to see you inside Classroom Management 101. Please let me know how else we can help. And I just look forward to it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for sticking it out all the way to the end. That's just such an honor to be able to speak with you guys. And I hope that you have an awesome day and an awesome school year. And we'll talk again soon. Bye.